Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for being here all day with us or for part of the day. We're just really glad to have this community of people who care about teaching and who are engaged in continuing to develop their practices. So I am delighted to have the chance to welcome our Provost, Persis Drell, who's the 13th Provost of Stanford. She's also the James and Anna Marie Spilker Professor in the School of Engineering and a professor in Material Science and Engineering and a professor of physics. I am deeply grateful to Persis for the great work that she's done to spearhead and foster an environment where we get to talk about ideal inclusion, diversity, equity, and access in a learning environment. Persis, it's one of the reasons why I'm here at Stanford, and so I'm really grateful that you're here with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And it's great to see you all here today. When I speak to incoming students in the fall, the incoming frosh, one of the things I say to them is, yes, our faculty are very devoted to research, but they are also really devoted to teaching. They're here because you're here. And the faculty are here for you. It's important students know that. And it's important for the students to know that we all want them to succeed, right? That's what we're about. Now, the high level of interest in this Teach conference, I think, just affirms that commitment of Stanford faculty to teaching. So I really want to thank all of you, the participants, the panelists, the workshop facilitators, and the speakers, because you're taking the time to come together as a community to share, to learn, and refine your practice of what we're calling ideal education. So I want to say a few words to set the context for the Ideal Initiative, really in the academic mission of the university. And then I'm going to share a little bit of my own experience, recent experience with students. So, Ideal, inclusion, diversity, equity, access in a learning environment. It's a university initiative. It actually reaches all members of our community through a lot of efforts around recruitment, research, education, and community engagement. Now, in the education space, Ideal, one aspect of it is about ensuring that we're really fully supporting the intellectual growth for all of our students. And Ideal works to ensure that all the students that we matriculate have access to the educational opportunities that we offer and that they're actually supported to be successful. Now, I probably don't need to tell those of you in this room that higher ed's been facing some challenges lately regarding efforts to promote inclusion or belonging or access or efforts at diversity. And there are perceptions and narratives, I hate that word, but I'm going to use it, narratives about a conflict between having an inclusive environment and support for such foundational principles as academic freedom and free speech. So I thought I'd spend a few minutes to talk about that because it might be of interest to you. I have to start with academic freedom, which is the principle that really does lie at the heart of a university. Our very mission of teaching and research depends on freedom of inquiry, thought, expression, and publication. I'm a physicist. Where would I be if Galileo had not defied the canon of the Catholic Church at, I would say, his own peril? But how do we set the norms in the classroom so that we can explore that freedom of inquiry and still remain inclusive? How do we foster challenging conversations that are actually respectful and productive? How do we embrace the concept that the classroom is not necessarily going to be a safe space where ideas and speech are constrained, but rather a space where we respectfully and meaningfully engage with our differences and with difficult and controversial ideas. And in the process, how do we promote honest, respectful, productive dialogue across difference that we all can learn from rather than shutting people down or making it unwelcome for them to voice views that are different from a majority of the opinions? So I have to think you're going to be grappling with some of these issues, and I look forward to learning from your insights, because I don't want to stand up here and tell you I have the solution or I think this is easy. In fact, I think it's hard. I also want to tell you that these issues were very much on my mind when I went into the classroom last fall. Um, I have always tried to teach one quarter a year when I was the dean or when I was the provost. I just think it's really important to stay in touch with our educational mission in that way. I will confess that during the pandemic, those were the 2 years I did not teach, and I really missed it. So last fall was my personal declaration that the pandemic was behind us and I was going to go back into the classroom. And rather than going back into the physics classroom, which is, I will say, my comfort zone, um, I agreed to teach one of the courses in our new college curriculum, civil, liberal, and global education. And the first course is College 101, and it's called Why College. And because we're at Stanford, I'm going to be very explicit. This is why, WHY college, not an incubator like Y college. Um, so initially, I will say I was quite nervous taking on the class because it's the first time I've ever taught outside of physics, and there was no whiteboard, no PowerPoint, just sitting in was a square, not a circle, and it was discussion based, no equations, so totally outside my comfort zone. Um, it was actually a fantastic experience. I can't remember when I've had more fun in the classroom. It was only, I think I had 17 students in our class. I had teaching partners, Teresa Ikar, who's a graduate student, and then Carolyn Winter, the chair of history, co-taught with me to sort of show me the ropes of how you teach in this environment. They were wonderful. Students, fabulous. Undergraduates coming to college right now, no matter what anybody else says, are fantastic. They're just fabulous, fabulous individuals. And I learned a lot, not just about the topics we covered, but about our students and also about how to, maybe my first practical lessons and how to create that environment that is both rigorous and welcoming. And I think the students learned a lot from it as well. So one thing we did, which was recommended to me, was we actually set class norms in advance. We said, there may be some difficult conversations, and honestly, we wandered into some stunningly difficult conversations. I was on the edge of my seat sometimes, but we discussed how we wanted to handle that before we actually got to the difficult conversation. Teresa Ikar did that the first day, and she was just so good at it, and it gave us something we could go back to. Um, I also have to say, narratives aside, it did remind me how fantastic our students are and how truly hungry they are to have serious conversations and address challenging topics. The students that are coming to college today are they're tough. They are willing to take on tough issues. They want and need our help to read critically, to think critically, and to engage topics intellectually, not just emotionally. And to understand that engaging intellectually does not mean that you can't engage emotionally as well. It's not either or. So the questions that we dealt with in college were around education, citizenship, ethics, lots of challenging of each other's assumptions, challenging their own assumptions. They certainly encountered some very diverse opinions. They learned some really important critical thinking skills. They were impassioned but respectful of each other. And perhaps best of all, and most important for today's classroom, they actually felt empowered to participate in active debate even when they disagreed. Now, we had the conversation both maybe 1/3 of the way through the course, 2/3 of the way through the course, and then at the end of the course. How can we take how we've learned to have this conversation in our classroom and take it back to the dorm, back to the dinner table? The first reaction was, "Oh, you can't possibly do that. It's different. That's different." Um, we made some progress on that during the quarter, but not nowhere near enough. So it does make me realize we have to keep at this, and it really is about tools and norms. And I also realized that my experience was just a small sample size. I'm doing it again next fall, but I did come away feeling really quite hopeful, particularly given the overwhelming narratives we hear every day. Um, because I believe that when we create an environment that is truly inclusive and where all members of our very diverse community really do feel like they belong and they're actively engaged and they are feel that they are treated with respect and that they're celebrated, Stanford will only get better. I'm not going to say we're there yet, by the way. Make no mistake, we have a long way to go. But I do know what the goal is. And just to be very clear, I mean diversity in its broadest sense. So, yes, gender, race, ethnicities, identities, backgrounds, religion, political views, sexual orientation, ages, physical abilities. And we need to understand that to have true inclusion, we need everyone participating in the discussion. That is what we're striving for. Now, embracing the concept that we can actually learn a lot from each other, especially when we disagree, is a lesson for life. And recognizing that there are actually skills that need to be learned and exercised and practiced, like all good skills, that it takes those skills to have the civil conversations about difficult topics that's needed to build a functioning society, and that practicing those skills, that again, those are lessons for life. So thank you all for your efforts in helping us create a more engaging and inclusive learning environment for our students through the Ideal Initiative. I'm sincere when I say I feel I have a lot to learn, so I do look forward to hearing some of your thoughts. Um, and I hope you come away from today's conference energized and inspired. Thank you very much.